I'm holding Faisal's book here. Okay, it's called The Real Deal, $1 billion real estate broker, right here. And you all can buy this, should you choose. Where can they get it?
Amazon.
Amazon?
They've got it on Audible and on the ebooks as well.
On
Kindle.
ebooks, good.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want you to know I've read every single word of this book from start to finish. Now, Faisal was kind enough to send me, put a little note in the front for me, which was very nice. And I'll tell you, there's some great stories in here about your life, 9/11 story especially, which we're going to talk about today if you're okay with that.
Sure, absolutely.
And but in terms of your system, so you sort of create a, Susiwala system, right? Sales system, and I'm not sure it was 10 steps or I can't remember,
Yeah,
something like that.
there's about 12 steps
12
to it.
steps.
Yes, yes.
So what you can do is he's got 12 steps in how he actually built up his business. Now, when we say the #1 agent in Canada, you're with Remax, that's not a big team. That's the individual agent, correct?
That's correct. I'm on the individual side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your model, before we get into your history, I find your model interesting. So you decided that you didn't want to build out this big team of a whole bunch of agents, right? And you're just doing lead gen all the time and that sort of thing. So tell everybody, what does your model look like?
So it's very simple. You call for me, you're going to get me. I'm going to list your home. I'm going to show up at your home. The idea behind it is that I didn't want to have this team that I had to feed and manage. So what I have is a network, very similar to just referring business out to an agent out of town.
Right.
I refer buyers only to anybody that calls on my listings. So I'm basically a lead generator for 5 or 6 agents that I work with in my local market.
Right. So what you do is, how many assistants do you have?
3 full-time assistants.
So you got 3 full-time assistants, but they do nothing in terms of sales.
That's right.
They're
not licensed.
social media, get you prepared for your appointments, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
You do all the listing appointments yourself.
Yes.
And I know it's in the book, but how long does your average listing appointment take?
So I'm in and out in about 45 minutes.
Okay, 45 minutes. And a lot of you are going, are you kidding me? I'm there 2.5 hours. But anyway, we'll get into that later. Okay, so he's in and out in 45 minutes. Sometimes you do 3 a day.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not uncommon to do 3 listing appointments a day.
6 even.
6 even a day.
Yeah.
6 listing appointments a day. And last year, how many units did you do?
467.
So 467 units last year. Now, those units, do they include buyers?
No, they don't. So that's just my listing ends.
And you hear that? That's not the buyers he's, giving up. That's just listing ends.
Yes.
Okay? So you guys hearing these numbers, right? The agents that you give these buyer leads to, they don't work for you, your team. They just work for the company.
They work for the company. The brokers love that because they're getting their full desk fees and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the agents love it because basically I'm able to help them build their own business. They're not limited to, some of the people that are on my network, they have their own billboards, they have their own buses, they have their own benches, they do their own marketing, they do their own farming. And anything that they're producing is going directly to them. I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And they're just I'm a lead generator, just like you would buy leads.
Yeah.
I'm referring buyers to them to run with. And if it works out, we split the commission.
And you put them on a 50-50, right?
It depends on what we're doing, but for the most part, it's 50-50.
Yeah.
A lot of the rental leads, I'll give them 75.
Yeah.
Just because that's a lot of extra work, but it keeps that business generating.
Yeah, makes sense. And a lot of people are afraid to give buyer leads away because they want to keep them all in their database. How do you feel about that?
I encourage the buyers, agents, to keep them on their database, and I have them on mine as well.
Right.
Because the connection point is them. They've never met me. Those buyers have never met me. So all of a sudden, if I'm starting to have contact with them and they don't hear from that buyer's agent ever again, they're thinking, why was I abandoned?
Right.
So by doing so, if that buyer calls their agent again and they want to list their home or something, we have a contract.
Right.
I'm still listing the home.
Right.
And then they'll get all the leads on the buying end again.
Right.
So it just continues to work.
It feels like you play from a position of abundance rather than scarcity.
Absolutely.
Because I feel everybody's trying to hold on to everything so much.
Yes.
You're saying, hey, put them on your database. Put them on my database. Yeah, if they list, the listing comes to me.
Absolutely.
Buyer still comes to you. Okay, so you were born in England.
Yes.
Right? And you were how old when you ended up here?
So I was 3 years old.
3 years old?
Yeah.
And you moved to Cambridge?
Yes. So my father worked in the textiles in England, and Cambridge, Ontario is where we came to because Cambridge was a big textiles town.
Right.
And my father was a weaver by trade, and that was his occupation, and that brought him to Cambridge, and I grew up there, and I never left.
Isn't that amazing? Eh?
Yeah, it's
Good
been
for
great.
you.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody in Cambridge knows you.
Well, almost.
Yeah, I know. So you get into real estate while you're still in high school,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That must have went over really well with your parents.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. East Indian parents, I was supposed to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer.
Yeah.
Right? Those are my three options. And of course, I was watching late night television one night, saw an infomercial on the infamous Tom Vu.
Yeah.
And he's sitting on the yacht with all these beautiful women. I'm like, I want to be this guy. And off I went to Conestoga College and thought, I'm going to learn about investing in real estate.
Right.
I had no idea that I was going to get licensed. I was just trying to learn about investing in real estate because I had saved. I was always entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn about that. And I thought, hell, I got my license. Maybe I'll do this part-time. And back to high school with my license, borrowing my mom's car when I needed it. And that's what I've done for the last 34 years.
Amazing, eh?
Yeah.
Now, when you first get into real estate, being of that age, did you have any success?
I'll tell you, it was interesting. So I had to deepen my voice. I had a mustache and, tried to look a lot older than I was. I was very fortunate. I came across a couple of investors that they were from South Africa.
Right.
They were looking to invest some money, and I'm at a dinner party, and I'm like, oh, I'm a realtor. Gave them my card. Never expected that they would call me again.
Yeah.
And on the Monday they called, and of course after school I met them, and my broker Reed Maneri. He was a wonderful man. He was my mentor, and he took me under his wing, and he sort of taught me. And we ended up in the first 2 months that I was in the business. This is back in 1988. My sales were $2 million in the first 2 months. I'm still in high school, so it was a great start.
Yeah. So when you finish high school, obviously in your book, it's in here, you didn't go to college after because you get into real estate. How did your parents take that? Were they okay with it? Or?
No, absolutely not.
No.
I was like, okay, well, it took my mother's uncle, who was a professor at Brock, to come over, and he came to talk me out of going to real estate. And then when he heard how much money I had made in the first 4 months, he said, this kid's making more money than I am, and I'm a professor.
Right.
So let him do what he's doing. And if it doesn't work out, then he could go to university.
Yeah.
So that was sort of and of course, I never looked back. Of course, now there were some hard times because in 1990, there was a recession, and it's like, okay, I better do something different here. But I persevered, and I continued doing what I was doing, and I was modeling a lot of excellent agents, but I was doing consistently.
Right.
And that was what really helped me. So it was really, I didn't invent anything. I just watched all the successful people, what they were doing. And at an early age, I learned that I can be a copycat.
Right.
But just do it better and do it often.
Yeah. Well, I remember you mentioned that, and I thought it was a really good point. You said the challenge you see is most people, they just don't take enough action, right?
Exactly.
They don't stay in the game. Okay, so your real estate, we could sit here and talk all day about your journey because it's all in the book, everybody, an amazing journey. But one story that I do want to touch on, and I didn't realize this till I read the book, is your 9/11 story.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell everybody about that because that was crazy, man.
So my son was going to be born. We were pregnant, and it was September of 2001 that we were in New York because my brother had bought my wife and I a trip to go shopping for our baby that was going to be born in January. And we were there, and we were having a great time. We were shopping and whatnot, and we were out one evening watching, just stargazing and, watching what's going on in the nightlife. And my brother had booked us at the Marriott at the World Trade Center.
Right.
And what happened the next morning was there was going to be a tour of the World Trade Center, and we had breakfast booked at the 104th floor of the Trade Center. And I'm notorious. I never have an appointment before 11 a.m. I like to sleep in. And I convinced my wife, who normally is an early riser, I said, listen, Natalie, let's just sleep in tomorrow morning, and we'll go for lunch. Of course, that's the morning that the planes hit. And I'll tell you, it just sort of gives me goosebumps even now. And, I think that was a turning point in my life. Yeah. It's like, why was I saved? Like what? And it changed the trajectory of my life. My mindset became more heart set. Yeah. I started thinking about things very differently. And I mean, it's a long story, and I write a little bit about it in the book, but it is something that had a profound impact on every aspect of my life and what I do. And it's like, there has to be a bigger purpose. for me. And and I think my son was to be born for a bigger purpose, and I hope that he does great things.
Yeah. When I read the story, it was like I'm just thinking, not only did you, and by the way, most people that sleep in, it's not a good thing. It worked out for you.
It worked out for me. Yeah.
And to be there, right there when it's going on, seeing what's going on because you're right in the same area.
It was surreal, absolutely surreal. We heard the bang.
Yeah.
We heard the bang. And what had happened was, because my brother we stayed the first night at the Marriott.
Right.
And then we checked out because it was $400 a night. And I'm like, he's paying a lot of money. So we checked out, but we kept our reservation for breakfast, which we changed the night of to say, no, we'll have lunch instead. And of course, lunch never happened.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's just
very sad.
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, so I want to get into some more real estate specific or tactical stuff that'll help these people. So, as I said, I've gone through the whole book. By the way, if you want to hear more from Faisal, I interviewed Faisal on my podcast, I don't know, probably a year ago, I guess, or whatever it was. So you can always go to the Richard Robbins show, and I got an idea that I haven't talked to Faisal about, but we'll probably do it again soon. But that's another story. One thing that when I was reading through your book, I was thinking about the way you go on listing presentations, right? And how you show them your value and how you separate yourself from everybody else. So I think a lot of people here could benefit from your listing process, okay? So obviously you can take us through, your assistant gets ready, right, for you. And then can you take them through with everything you do when you show up at the house and what the process looks like?
Absolutely. So Jennifer and Alicia, they will prepare my listing presentation, which is comparables, listeds, solds, whatever it is in that area. And typically, I haven't even seen the comps until I'm sitting down.
Right.
And Chantal will bring my comps to me at the next house.
Right.
So when I show up, I haven't actually really even done the research, but I have familiarity in that marketplace that I know what I'm expecting to show here. When I walk in, I right away greet the folks, and I ask them to take me for a tour of their home.
Right.
So what I'm doing during that tour is I'm learning their behavior, I'm learning their expectations, I'm learning what things they're pointing out, and just trying to figure out where are we going to be able to relate to each other.
Right.
So I'm learning and feeding off of their energy at that point.
Right.
When we sit down, it's a conversation. I hardly even show the comps to them. Mm-hmm. I open it up, I show them, well, here's a couple of homes on your street, this, that, and I said, I've highlighted, and my staff highlights everything for me before I get there. I said, here's the square footage, the listing prices, but we're just having a conversation. The most important part of my presentation is the journey of when they get the offer.
Right.
And how that's going to play out, and how I'm going to negotiate, how I'm going to market their home.
Right.
And that's what really closes them without me actually having to close them.
Right.
And one of the principles I talk about in my strategy is that never be closing.
Right.
I literally start packing up and start leaving their home, and they're saying, like, where are you going? We want to list with you. So I've never said, well, all right, are we ready to do this? Now, I have an electronic version that's uploaded already on DocuSign, and I have a hard copy. Right. And often I've been in the driveway and they've called and said, oh, we're ready to list. When can you come back? And we just emailed them the DocuSign. Yeah. So there's a system there, but it's a conversation, and it's leading them through the journey of the sale that is so important. Then showing them this fancy presentation, PowerPoint, this and that, because eyes just glaze over, and they're not listening to that. And I don't wait till the end to talk about commission. Right. I tell them right up front. Right. In my conversation, I deal with all the objections that they may have or all the concerns that they may have in my conversation. Right. And rarely, if ever, does somebody call me out on that and say, well, what about your commission, or why are you charging? Because once I've led them through the journey of success and how well I'm going to do and how well I'm going to negotiate and how well I'm going to market their home, where I'm going to spend my money to target the audience for their home, it's extremely rare for them to even have any questions at the end, other than for them to say, all right, let's do this. Yeah. So take us through the process, okay? So let's get down sort of the nitty gritty. So, you sit down at their table, and what do you say? You take them, look at pricing a little bit. What do you say about marketing? How do you separate yourself from a marketing standpoint? So I'm in a zone, Cambridge, Ontario, where we are about 35 minutes west of Milton. Right. So our catch is Milton, Mississauga, Brampton, Oakville, Burlington. Right. So I'm a member of the other boards as well. Right there. That one item, telling them that I'm going to market their home in an area where we are going to get bidders. That's what we need, because our market didn't have that for many, many years.
Right.
So I'm going to sell your home to people who are accustomed to bidding to buy. The conversation I'm having with people outside of the market is, oh, you're asking $999 for this home. How much more do I need to pay to buy this home? The local buyer is saying, how much can I get it for?
Right.
So when I'm taking them through that process of how that sale is going to work, they're not even caught up in, commissions and fees and the price of their home. They're saying, okay, how can you get us that kind of and that level of success? By showing them where I'm going to advertise. Then I show them my marketing, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. These are the value marketing pieces that I want to show them, and I show them that I'm spending money. I'm doing pay-per-click ads on Google. I'm showing them an ad that I run in Milton that says drive 35 minutes, save $350,000. When they click on that, they're going to get a picture of your home, the price of your home. So I'm showing them exactly how I'm going to get that audience. Then I show them the stats that, okay, we live in an area where there's a large population of South Asians. So I'm going to make sure that your home shows up in Brampton, in Milton, in Mississauga, in certain sectors of the market where there's a population of South Asians. So I'm going to now match that population to your home. And we're using social media to make sure we target that audience.
Okay, brilliant. So, and that comes down to that point you have in there, buyers not, or bidders not buyers.
That's right, yes.
So one of your teachings is don't try to find buyers, try to find bidders.
Yes.
Now, you're promoting you're going to get bidders, but what happens if you don't? Or do you all the time?
I typically do. I typically do, because the strategy that I have, in order for it to work, I need to price it accordingly to create that.
Right.
The other thing that I show my sellers is that I'm going to have a very big audience of realtors that I'm cooperating with.
Right.
So I don't put in my listings that if you're a co-op broker coming from out of town, I'm going to take 50% of your commission. You see this in agents' remarks. It's awful. So I'm actually showing them that I'm not doing this. In fact, I'm telling the buyer's agent outside of town that if you're wanting to come into Cambridge, for example, send your buyer. We'll get one of our buyer's agents to show it to them, because they're there anyways. We'll still pay your full commission. Now their only job is to get me the highest possible price for that home. And I'm sharing all these stories with my seller.
Right.
So it's all about that conversation, leading them through the journey of success for the sale.
Beautiful. Okay, so do you have questions? If you have questions, put them in the portal. Okay, not in the not up here in the chat, because remember, we've got three things going on here. We've got about 1,250 people with us here on 3 screens, so you can put them in. So first question is, how do you select the agents that you choose to work with in your market?
So I'm very mindful of the different types of buyers that we're going to have.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of guys that are great, because we have a lot of ethnic buyers that feel more comfortable due to religious values or whatever dealing with a man. So we've got that. Then I've got a lot of first-time home buyers that are calling on my ads. So I want someone young and sort of vibrant and, bubbly to work with them. And then we've got people that are downsizing, and so I've got someone that's a little bit more mature that can really relate to them, and someone very, systematic and business-like. So I've got a vast sort of range of personalities that I can mirror to have those buyers connected with. And I personally refer the buyer to that buyer's agent. It's not just, next on the log. So I'm selecting who I'm sending and where I'm sending, because the first call typically comes to me because they're calling on my listing.
Right.
So I'm still talking to that buyer on my listing before I refer it out.
Now, what about one of your, because this is an issue, like we all know the natural evolution of building up a team is you start with an admin assistant, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, the next thing you want to get rid of buyers, right?
Yes.
Because buyers take up so much time, nights, weekends, we can go on and on about that, and you want to control the inventory like you do, which is brilliant. But what about one of your past clients that goes, oh, no, Faisal, I don't want to work with anybody but you to buy a house?
Absolutely. I work with them.
Yeah, you work with them.
I will work with them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And now I will tell them that, look, I may not always be there, so I will have somebody open the door for you, But when it comes time to making that offer and negotiating that deal, 100%, my attention will be yours.
Yeah. So in other words, I don't have to drive you around. I don't have to take you through a house,
Exactly.
right? Come
Yeah.
on, like,
Yeah.
yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. A lot of
Exactly.
sense. Okay. How many buyer's agents do you have?
So currently I have 5.
5. Can you recommend someone for Google Ads? Is there anybody you use for Google Ads?
So we're doing it directly through Google, so Facebook, Instagram, Google, we're doing all of that directly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I want to. There's a couple. I just wanted to look down here. What is your system for showings and open houses with so many ends? Oh yeah. So what is your system for showings and open houses with so many ends? So obviously, do you do open houses?
So absolutely no.
No.
No open houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want appointment only. That way I can do the follow-up, I can get the feedback, have a better interaction with the agents. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
And as far as the showings, it's literally I'm passing it off to one of the 5 agents that I have.
Yeah.
on
So somebody wants to see your listing, you pass that off to.
I will pass that off to one of the agents. Now, and if no one's available, I'll go show my listing.
Yeah.
So I'm typically working Monday to Thursday physically.
Right.
I'm on 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But those are the 4 days that I'm available to do anything that's required of me. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm typically away.
Yeah. You go up to the cottage, right?
To the cottage, yeah.
Now, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so you don't go in till late. You're more.
11 till 7 is usually my day.
That's your day.
Yeah.
So you work 11 to 7, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yes.
And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're available on the phone. or
On the
whatever you
phone,
gotta do,
whatever
that
has
sort
to be
of thing.
done.
Do you have assistants working on the weekends?
So they're always on call.
Right.
But they're not physically there Saturday and Sunday. But they're always on call, and they're wonderful.
Okay, good. Okay. How do you communicate? How do you communicate with sellers today with the market changing? Yeah, this is a really good question, actually, because you're very experienced. So, we're going through, I call it normalizing, right? We've got things sort of normalizing a little bit. So what are you saying to your sellers today?
I'm giving them a weekly update.
Yeah.
And I'm attaching headlines.
Yeah.
And I'm telling them not to worry in some of those headlines. Look, RBC came out the other day and they talked about a 25% decline in the marketplace by the end of the year. They're the same bank that at the beginning of COVID said there was going to be a 25% decline.
Yeah.
We're up 62%.
Yeah.
So are we going to put a lot of weight in that? The fundamentals of the market haven't changed.
Yeah.
And I'm repeating this to people all the time. There's a 500,000 home shortage in the Golden Horseshoe. There's a 1.5 million home shortage in Canada. There's a 500,000 population increase annually in Ontario. So what are we panicking about? And okay, so if we drop 10%, so what? We're still up 50, right?
Yeah.
So and construction costs are not going down.
Yeah.
Land values are not going down. So there is no pressure on pricing to drop.
Right.
Interest rates are going up, but they're still lower than pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So, and again, the bankers can tell you all about this, but there's a lot of fear-mongering that's going on. And these are the times that, as an agent, we need to earn the trust of our buyers and sellers and educate them. And I'll tell sellers all the time, look, you either sell right now, May, June, if you want to really max out where we're at, or shelf the idea for about a year, because we're going to go through some rough waters for the next 6 to 9 months. So we're not sugarcoating it for them, but I'm setting their expectations weekly.
Right.
If I had done an evaluation back in February and said your house is worth $1 million, I'm letting them know we might be closer to 920 or 925 right now.
Right.
I'm letting them know. So don't make decisions and don't go out and buy a house based on what I told you back in February. And we're giving them updates. But my social media engagement is very high. Yeah. So I'm sending out information regularly, and I'm engaging with those people. I'm doing the podcasts. I'm doing the interviews to make sure that my buyers and sellers are well informed, and they can reach out to me anytime.
Yeah. Now, you still doing the videos yourself? You were doing some videos.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm doing some videos, not as many as I was doing.
Yeah.
But I am still doing the videos as well. Yeah.
Now, when you got started, so you start out, how did you get started in terms of growing your business? Like, so somebody's out there, they're doing 10 deals here. Pick that person, right? And they want to turn it up. They want to get to 30, 40, 50. What do you recommend? Because they need leads.
Yes.
Like, they're probably great salespeople, right? At least hopefully they are. They need leads.
Yes.
What should they do?
So, it's about scaling down. And I'm going to go back to 1988. I was 18 years old. I was a kid. I had no business. I had no sphere. I had nobody to turn to give me business. So I took a subdivision, and I just started farming 300 homes in that subdivision. But I made sure that every 3 weeks they got a piece of mail from me. That started getting my face out there. I decided very early on that 20% of my income, my gross income, would go back into marketing. Right. Look, you open up a variety store, you open up a clothing store, you've got to go and put money into inventory. So in our business, we need to put money into branding yourself and becoming the brand, becoming synonymous with your industry, and making sure that when people think real estate, I want them to think my name.
Right.
And that's, so I grew that very, very huge. I was up to 33,000 flyers in every mailbox in Cambridge every 3 weeks, up till about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
At that point, I shifted out of every piece of print media, and I went strictly into social media. And again, people thought I was nuts. The magazines were giving me free pages because as soon as I pulled out, other people started pulling out. But I started doing a lot more. 15 years ago, I started getting on the back of buses.
Right.
Not riding them, actually, on the back of the bus. So I'm on the back of 21 buses. I'm on billboards. So my marketing budget is high, but it's not even close to 20% of my gross annual income anymore.
Right.
It's maybe 7%.
Yeah.
So I've declined my expenses by using the evolution of social media. And that's, you've got to continuously evolve with what's happening.
It's so funny you say that, because we've got benchmarks, right, in our company, so we can look at large teams and individual agents, and here's what your numbers should be, here's what your average marketing should be, and all these sort of things. And we always say, to grow your business when you're newer, you've got to spend 15 to 20% marketing, right? And what's interesting is once your business is scaled up, you can pull that back to 10%. So isn't that funny? The numbers that you just mentioned, and we've never talked about this before,
they're right
are
on.
almost the exact numbers, because we're saying, like you're saying 7%, but 10%, yeah, you gotta be spending money to market yourself, right?
do.
But to get started, you got to spend the money up front. Somebody opens up a restaurant, and this is the whole thing about real estate. They sometimes forget they're in their own business, right?
Yes.
Somebody opens up a restaurant. How do you get people to come in? Market. You got to get out somehow, market your restaurant. Maybe you send flyers out to the neighbors, right? We're going to do a 2-for-1, or you get a free this, you get a free that, to get people in. And then when the people come in, now guess what? Try to get all their information. So now what you can do is put them on an email list. So now they can see your specials every Thursday night. So, and then once you get that ramped up, and now your email list, you can probably get more business from that, and you don't spend as much in marketing. It's, that's the process of growth, right?
And I talk about that all the time in my system, that, maybe it's a bold statement that everything you've been taught is wrong, but, door knocking, cold calls, I've never done that. I've never picked up the phone. I've never knocked on a door. I've used my passive marketing to grow my business, because I don't want to annoy the seller, and I spent money. This is the other thing, you can't spend a lot of money because, I got to see a paycheck for 6 months. You're starting up a business. Most businesses don't make money for 3 years. We're very fortunate in our industry that if you do the right things consistently, you're going to do very well. Never did I imagine someone with a grade 12 education coming out of high school, no formal degree or any of that, to be able to achieve the kind of incomes that I've been achieving my entire career.
Oh, I agree with you. Real estate's a wonderful business.
It is.
It really is. Okay, so let's get to a few of the questions, and then we'll start to close this out. How many administrators? He has 3.
Yes.
Do you connect weekly with your clients by phone or video?
Weekly by email.
Weekly by email. Okay, so weekly by email.
Yes.
If you started today, would you still do print?
Absolutely. So again, I talk about scaling down. You shouldn't try to be absolutely everywhere. So I have a population of 135,000 homes in Cambridge, and I'm in Kitchener-Waterloo as well, but I'm still focused in Cambridge. I've scaled it down that I want to be a household name in those 135,000 population. And if I was starting out today, absolutely, I would pick an area of 1,000 homes and make sure that 1,000 homes got a flyer from me every single 3 weeks, let's say, that the schools, I'd be sponsoring events at the schools, I'd have a bus bench there, maybe a bus route in that area. Last year, I drove through all of Cambridge with an ice cream truck giving out free ice cream to everybody. But, if you can pick an area and start doing things and becoming a community, community marketing is so important.
Totally agree. And the thing is, when you start, you're trying to build a database. So then you got to pick a geographical community to work, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, as you start getting more names in your database, and you've got another community to market, right? It's just a different community, right? And then I like what you said, so scale down, because that's what you're talking about. Don't start with 30,000 homes. Find you talk about buyers and sellers. Talk about it. Oh yeah, you said when you hired your first assistant, your income doubled.
It did.
Right? And
Absolutely.
we were talking upstairs on the break with some of the panelists. We were talking about that. You might have heard, or maybe they asked you, but they go, well, do I really need to hire somebody? And I said, well, Faisal's coming. His income doubled when he hired his first assistant, which is great. We talked about listing presentations, bidders not buyers, and never be closing. Look, I got everything you already brought up without even looking down at my card.
There you go.
How good is that?
There you go.